Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of NinaRibena's Art Journal Prompts and More. The challenge this week for the puzzled prompt is word games, word puzzles, and I'm thinking crosswords, word searches, Scrabble, that kind of thing. I've pulled out some pages from some old books that were in my kids' stash that have got, well, this one here has got a crossword that's Alex's writing. Alex filled in when he was younger. There's this word game here, Around the Clock, and one of the word searches. And I want to do my calendar page. Some of us are, as you know, doing a calendar for 2019. I'm doing mine on postcard size pages, 6 inches by 4 inches. So I've cut my cardstock to the right size, and I'm just going to, in fact, what I shall do is fussy cut the game pieces out, and then I want to tear them out and collage them onto this sheet of card. So I've cut the word searches and crosswords and things up into pieces, roughly cutting. I haven't bothered to cut this neatly at all, as you can see. These are the letters that were down by the side of the crossword. These are the titles from some of the games, and I'm just going to chop, in fact, let's just tear it, just going to tear these up like this and just glue these down. As you know, I like gluing on deli paper just because it stops my piece from sticking to the paper, the surface that I'm working on. And I'm just going to willy-nilly glue these down. I've got some kind of black on this paintbrush, but I really don't care because I'm going to cover over it anyway, so that's okay. There we go. Let's just glue these down, being very, very random about it. Just going to overlap them. Like this, and as soon as I've finished doing this, then I shall be back. My puzzle pieces are glued onto my cardstock, and I've trimmed around the edges, so that's what that looks like. And I just want to add a little bit of white gesso just to tone it down just a little bit. I do still want to be able to see some of this, but I just want to tone it down just a bit. So I'm just adding a little bit of gesso, and to blend those edges where I've obviously glued it down. So there we go, that will do. Still want some of that showing through in my background. So I shall give this a dry with my heat tool, and then decide how I want to cover it. I want to add some colour to it next, and I'm not sure how I want to do that and what I want to use. Right, okay, the gesso is dry now, and what I want to do is add some harlequins to my piece, and I'm going to use some StazOn ink to do that. I'm just going to use a makeup sponge, and I want it all over, so I'm going to have to keep realigning this piece. And I'm going to do this off camera because this just really shakes my camera, because of course my tripod is above my desk. There's nothing I can really do about that, so I'm just going to go all the way over, and then when I get to the stage where I want to align it, I'll show you how. In fact, we're nearly there now. Let me just show you how I'm going to do that. So if you have a stencil that isn't quite big enough to cover the whole of your page, it really doesn't matter, because you can just keep moving it over and realigning it. So let me just make sure that I've got all of that covered. So there we go, and then I can just move it over like this, and just go over it again. And I'll just keep moving it along, just aligning up those harlequins, those diamond shapes, until I've covered the whole of my card. So my card is completely covered, and whilst I've got the ink in my hand, you can guess what I'm going to do now. I'm going to add my border, just to save me having to get the ink out again. decided that my postcard was too white, and so I went and made up some tea, and I forgot to switch the camera back on, but I've just sprayed over it. I'm just going to give it another coat, and this has just taken that stark whiteness away, and I just love this. It's given it a nice grungy vintagey look, and I'm just going to heat set this with my heat tool. I want to add, I've got some of these small little mini cards, mini playing cards, and these are just something that I've printed out from the internet. I looked up free printables, and so I fussy cut some of the red ones out. In fact, I fussy cut black and red, but it's the red ones I want, and I just want to put some of these randomly over the background. And you can see that what I've done with this, let me just show you. I've done it with all of these. I've fussy cut them out, and then I've just gone around with a Sharpie marker just to tidy up the edges, and I've just gone around it like this, just because, you know, my fussy cutting wasn't perfect, and it doesn't need to be, because if you do this, you can cover up any mistakes you make anyway. Has anyone guessed that I'm going with an Alice in Wonderland theme this week? I'm going to be using this image here that I've printed off the internet as my focal image, and I've shrunk this down. I think it was by 69% or something like that, and I've fussy cut her out, so she's going to appear something like that as my focal image. But I want to colour a few bits and pieces in. I want to just shade her face and her arms in sort of like a skin tone colour, and I'm going to use my tea just because that colour is absolutely perfect, but I'm going to paint it on as opposed to spray, because you know, I don't want it to go everywhere. So I'm just going to use a watercolour paintbrush just to add this to her face and her arms like this. So I've painted her arms, her face, her hair as well, and the inside of the crown, because I've got some ideas for that in a minute. But I want her dress to be blue, and so I'm going to use one of my Neo colours. I've just been testing on a piece of scrap paper to see what I could use to get the right shade of blue that I wanted, and it's going to be the Neo colour. So I'm just going to loosely paint this on. I want to avoid her pearls because I've got some ideas for that. So, and I just want this to sort of have that watery colour look, so I'm just going to go all over my piece with the blue, and again this will just add a bit of colour to my sort of mainly black and white with a hint of red page. I just love how this is coming together now. I want the ball of the crown to be red, so again I'm just using my Neo colour, just loading my paintbrush up with some of that red, and we'll just go over that like that. I want her crown to be gold, and I'm going to do it with some embossing powder, and I'm going to use a Versamark embossing pen just to get into the details, and I'm going to do this off screen. What I'm doing is just colouring in the areas where I want the gold to be attached. So I've inked up with my embossing pen, and the good thing is, let me just give this a shake first actually. The good thing about embossing ink is that if I put the embossing powder on afterwards and it just doesn't look right, I can just brush it straight off before I heat set it. So I'm just going to add some of this gold embossing powder. Yeah, that looks okay to me. And this is a Fun Stamps, I think it's called Pirate Gold. No, it's just gold embossing powder. So let me just move that out of the way for a second, and I'm just going to heat set this with my heat tool. And just look at that gold crown, how fabulous is that? And you can see if I hold it up close, there's a couple of areas where I haven't quite got any of the powder, so I'm just going to wait for this to cool down, use my embossing pen again, and just add a little bit more. She looks, just look how gold that crown is. I'm really happy with that, and so I'm ready now to glue this down, and I want it to go on my cards, something like that, and I'm just going to stick it down with a glue stick. I've outlined Alice, and I've used a mixture of Micron pen. I want to add some glossy accents to the red ball on top, and so I've used Micron pen for that because it's permanent, and then I've used Stabilo All just to go around everywhere else, so that's just made that stand out a bit better. Okay, we're nearly done. I've given the back of my postcard, a coat of black gesso just to tidy that up. And I've printed off my focal image, which is another printable off the internet. Who in the world am I? That's the great puzzle, Alice in Wonderland. And I've just shrunk it down, I think by 69%. And then you could see that it was just too white. So I've given it a quick wash with the tea stain again, and I'm just going to glue that down, something like that. I'm just going to use this glue here. Here we go. So I had a bit around the, focusing on the edges. There we go. That will do. And where do I want that to go? It's going to have to cover that card piece there. I think it's got to go something like that. Let me just get it straight though. Am I happy with that? There we go, glue it down. And here's my finished calendar page for July. I don't know whether you can tell, but I've added some dimensional glue to the main quote, the ball of the crown, and Alice's necklace as well. And that's just added some really nice dimension. I love the way that that's finished it off. So that's the calendar page for July. And here's the others. So we've got January, February, March, April, May, June, and where's July gone? And I just love how different all of these calendar pages are. I just love the way that that's coming together. So just to recap, the challenge this week is to use word and number games and puzzles. Interpret it any way you like. If you're not taking part in the 2019 calendar, then, you know, perhaps ATCs, tags, a journal page, that kind of thing. Interpret this any way you like. And if you want to do an Alice themed piece, then, you know, feel free to do so. I think Alice in Wonderland is perfect for this puzzle prompt. So I look forward to seeing all your wonderful artwork in the Facebook group as usual. If anybody wants to join the Facebook group and take part in our weekly challenges, then you'll find the link and the details in the description box. If you enjoyed this week's video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, then, you know, that would be great if you do so. And don't forget to click on the bell for notifications of my future videos. So take care everyone, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.